Walk into any boat dealership in America right now, and you'll witness something that hasn't happened in 15 years. Salesmen are practically begging you to name your price. Right now, across America, dealer lots are packed with more boats than they've seen since the financial crisis. Millions of dollars of inventory just sitting there, shrink-wrapped, waiting. And every single day they don't sell, dealers lose thousands. This isn't a small problem. This is an industry-wide catastrophe that nobody saw coming. 3 years ago, you couldn't buy a boat if you tried. Waiting lists stretched for months. People paid $50,000 over sticker price just to skip the line. Dealers were kings. Now, they're begging customers to make any offer at all. How did the entire marine industry go from record profits to financial freefall in less than 24 months? And why are some dealers already closing their doors forever? What you're about to see isn't just a story about boats. It's about what happens when an entire industry bets everything on a future that never arrives. To understand the crisis gripping America's marine industry today, you have to understand the euphoria that came before it. The story begins not in a boardroom or a factory floor, but in the spring of 2020, when something extraordinary happened to the American psyche. As lockdown swept the nation, people trapped in their homes began to dream of escape, of freedom, of water. Marina parking lots that had been empty in March were suddenly overflowing by June. Boat dealerships, deemed essential businesses in most states, watched in amazement as customers lined up with cash in hand. It was as if the entire country had collectively decided that life was too short to wait for someday. The numbers told a story of unprecedented demand. In 2020, Americans bought 415,000 boats. It was the highest sales figure since 2008, before the financial crisis. But this wasn't just about quantity. Average transaction prices jumped from $42,000 in 2019 to $67,000 by 2022. People weren't just buying boats. They were buying bigger boats, better boats, dream boats. Brunswick Corporation, the giant behind Mercury Marine and numerous boat brands, saw its stock price triple. During a 2021 earnings call, CEO David Foulkes made a prediction that would soon haunt the industry. We see sustained elevated demand for the next decade. This is not a bubble. This is a fundamental shift in how Americans want to live. The industry responded with unprecedented aggression. Manufacturers committed $3.2 billion to expansion. New factories sprouted across the Southeast. Companies that had run single shifts for decades suddenly went to 24-hour operations. They hired thousands of workers, ordered new molds, and doubled down on production capacity. A dealer in Fort Lauderdale would later describe those days with a mixture of nostalgia and disbelief. We were taking deposits on boats that wouldn't arrive for 14 months. People were literally paying $20,000 over MSRP just to jump the line. I had customers calling me at midnight, begging to get on the list. In 30 years of selling boats, I'd never seen anything like it. By late 2022, the marine industry had transformed itself for what everyone believed was a new golden age. They were building for a future of endless demand, preparing for the next wave of buyers who would surely come. The warning signs started with a number nobody wanted to talk about: 8.5%. In the summer of 2023, marine lending rates had quietly climbed to levels not seen in 2 decades. The same boat loan that cost $1,389 a month in 2021 now demanded $2,147. For the average American family already stretched by inflation, that difference meant the dream was suddenly out of reach. But interest rates were just the first domino. In Florida, the epicenter of American boating, marine insurance rates shot up 47% year over year. Hurricane Ian had spooked insurers. Some companies stopped writing policies altogether for boats valued over $500,000. In California, carriers began dropping coverage entirely, citing climate risk. Storage costs at marinas hit by storms doubled overnight. The total cost of boat ownership, once predictable, had become a moving target that kept climbing. For dealers, the math turned cruel. They had stocked up on inventory during the boom, financing their showroom floors with variable rate loans. When those rates adjusted, carrying costs exploded from $800 per boat per month to $2,400. A typical dealer with 50 boats in inventory was suddenly bleeding $120,000 monthly just to keep the lights on. The phone calls stopped first. Memorial Day weekend 2023, traditionally the industry's strongest sales period, came and went with eerie quiet. A dealer in Tampa remembers the moment precisely. Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, 75 degrees, perfect weather. We had 12 salespeople ready. 2 customers showed up. 2. By October 2024, the data painted a clear picture of an industry in distress. Boat Trader, the nation's largest marketplace, showed listings up 43% year over year, but views per listing had crashed 61%. The inventory was piling up, and nobody was looking. Behind closed doors, manufacturers began having different conversations. The expansion plans drafted in conference rooms during the boom suddenly looked like suicide notes. Brunswick quietly shelved a $100 million facility expansion. Smaller builders started laying off the workers they'd fought so hard to hire just 18 months earlier. The buyers weren't coming back. Every sales manager in America could feel it. And every day they didn't show up. Every day those boats sat shrink-wrapped in the sun. The hole got deeper. The industry that couldn't build boats fast enough was about to discover what happens when the music stops. Walk into any dealership from Fort Lauderdale to Seattle today, and you'll see something that hasn't happened since 2009. Sticker prices crossed out in red marker, replaced with numbers that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. The desperation is visible, tangible. Brand new 2024 center consoles, $300,000 boats that would have sold in hours during the boom, now carry signs reading, "Make any reasonable offer." Some dealers have stopped pretending altogether. Their banners simply read, "Everything must go." Jim Patterson has sold boats in Texas for 30 years. His lot contains 53 units, including 2021 models that have never touched water. Every month they sit, I lose $3,000 per boat, he says, staring at rows of pristine fiberglass. I've got $2 million in inventory that's worth maybe 1.4 on a good day. The bank doesn't care about good days. They want their payment. The human cost spreads beyond the dealerships. Service departments are seeing repossessions arrive daily. Boats purchased at peak pricing now worth 60% of their loan value. Owners are walking away from $100,000 negative equity positions. Marina operators report abandoned boats appearing overnight, their registration numbers scraped off, the owners vanishing like ghosts. Major manufacturers have entered crisis mode. Sea Ray, once the pride of American boat building, shuttered its Michigan facility, sending 400 workers home with no return date. Chaparral cut production by 60%. Mercury Marine, the engine giant that had operated at capacity for 3 straight years, announced temporary workforce adjustments, corporate speak for mass furloughs. Even premium brands have surrendered to reality. Grady White, which had never offered factory rebates in its 60-year history, announced $20,000 incentives. Boston Whaler dealers advertised 2019 pricing on 2024 models. The discount wars have begun, and everyone knows how they end. The statistics tell the story in cold precision. New boat registrations for the third quarter of 2024 dropped 27% year over year. Dealer inventory turns, which should happen 6 times annually for a healthy business, have slowed to 2.3. Floor plan defaults, virtually non-existent in 2022, have increased 340%. In Miami, a dealership that had operated for 47 years posted a simple sign that captured the entire industry's desperation. Make any reasonable offer. 3 weeks later, the lot was empty. So was the building. After nearly 5 decades in business, they were gone. Industry analyst Richard Howlett has studied marine markets for 25 years. He puts the crisis simply. The marine industry made 3 fatal assumptions. Each one seemed reasonable at the time. Together, they created a perfect storm. The first miscalculation was demographic delusion. The industry convinced itself that millennials, who had flocked to boats during the pandemic, would keep buying. They built marketing campaigns around younger buyers, designed smaller, more affordable models, and celebrated the declining average buyer age. But reality hit hard. The average boat buyer age has actually increased from 51 to 54. Millennials carry an average of $37,000 in student debt. When forced to choose between a $70,000 boat and financial stability, the choice was obvious. The second assumption involved the remote work revolution. In 2021, buyers justified purchases with a simple phrase, "I can work from my boat." Companies were promising permanent flexibility. Digital nomads were buying trawlers. By 2024, those promises evaporated. Return-to-office mandates swept through corporate America. Boat usage hours among working-age owners dropped 67%. The floating office became an expensive storage problem. The third and most devastating miscalculation concerned interest rates. Every manufacturer, every dealer, every industry executive bet on rate cuts by 2023. The Federal Reserve had different plans. Higher for longer became the phrase that killed 1,000 dealerships. Every quarter of delay added $2.8 billion in carrying costs across the industry. The cheap money that had fueled the boom was gone, and it wasn't coming back. The comparison to automotive markets reveals the unique vulnerability of marine retail. Cars depreciate predictably. They're necessities. People need them for work, for life. Boats are emotional purchases, dreams made tangible. When emotion meets economic reality, emotion loses every time. A chart of boat sales versus federal funds rate shows an almost perfect inverse correlation, -0.89. As rates rise, sales fall. It's mathematical, predictable, and ruthless. Yet somehow, an entire industry convinced itself this time would be different. The truth is harder to accept than any market analysis. The marine industry didn't just misread the market, it misread America. They built for a nation of boundless optimism and endless credit. Instead, they got a country worried about inflation, jobs, and making the mortgage. The boats are beautiful, powerful, and perfect, but perfect doesn't pay the bills. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And the marine industry has been here before. After the 2008 crisis, half of America's boat dealers disappeared. The survivors emerged leaner, smarter, and surprisingly stronger. Now, as spring 2025 approaches, a similar transformation has begun. MarineMax, the nation's largest dealer network, has quietly acquired 12 struggling competitors in 6 months. OneWater Marine predicts 30% market consolidation by 2026. The small family dealers, the ones who've sold boats for generations, face a stark choice: evolve or evaporate. Some are finding creative solutions. Shared inventory agreements, where multiple dealers split costs and profits. Service-first models that prioritize maintenance over sales. The smart ones are adapting. Innovation, long stifled by easy profits, has suddenly accelerated. Electric boats, dismissed as toys during the boom, now make economic sense when fuel costs $4 per gallon. Subscription models are emerging, where customers pay monthly for access rather than ownership. Fractional ownership programs, like timeshares for boats, are gaining traction among younger buyers who want the experience without the burden. Brunswick's CEO recently admitted what everyone already knew. We're not selling boats anymore. We're selling experiences. It's more than corporate speak. It's recognition that the old model, the one that created this crisis, is dead. For buyers, this collapse has created unprecedented opportunity. First-time customers are getting 2019 prices with 2025 technology. Quality has improved as manufacturers, no longer racing to meet impossible demand, focus on craftsmanship. The industry is returning to building 25-year boats instead of 5-year profit machines. As dawn breaks over America's dealer lots, thousands of boats sit waiting. Their hulls gleam in the morning light, perfect and patient. The dealers who remain are different now, humbled, hardened. They've learned what sailors have always known. The tide that lifts all boats also reveals what happens when it recedes. The boats will sell. They always do. History proves that Americans return to the water. It's encoded in our national DNA, this need to push off from shore, to find freedom where the horizon meets the sea. But the industry that emerges from this crisis won't be the one that entered it. Perhaps that's the lesson. In an industry built on navigating uncertain waters, the real test isn't avoiding the storm. It's having the wisdom to recognize when you're sailing into one and the courage to adjust your course before it's too late. The question isn't whether the marine industry will survive. It's who will be left standing when it does.